Duffy.
Yep.
Good to
Thank you,
go.
Bonnie. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Traffic Safety Committee. I'm just going to read our little notes here and then we'll get started. This open meeting of the Traffic Safety Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law on March 29th, 2023. All members of the Traffic Safety Committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows the Traffic Safety Committee to meet entirely remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed in the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comments. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Rachel Armstrong.
Here.
Chris DeSantis.
Here.
Brian Cole.
Here.
And staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. DPW Director Scott Charpentier.
Present.
Okay. With that, we will start working our way down the agenda. I do see that we have a couple new items here, so I guess we'll get to those. The first one we'll talk about is the no parking zone on Fay Street. Scott, if you want to bring us up to speed on that.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we received an email from a resident expressing concern about vehicles parking on Fay Lane. As you're going out of town on Church Street, it's on the right-hand side after Colby. It leads into the Valentine neighborhood, and there's a vegetated area on the left-hand side. I've driven by there probably, I don't know, well, since the email came in, maybe half a dozen times. I think I've seen a couple trucks or cars parked there, maybe a third of the time I've driven by. It's a vegetated area. It's not municipally owned. It's owned by an abutter. But I believe it's across the street from the driveways where the person was reporting the concern. It's just vehicles. I'm not sure if they're residents down there or if somebody just taking a rest, but I have observed them probably a third of the time I drive by.
Okay. And is this a designated no parking zone already?
No. Nope.
No.
It's just a residential neighborhood. You know, you drive up it, right-hand side. I think there's 3 or 4 driveways. Left-hand side, there's a long, vegetated area, and then you take a right onto Valentine. So it's a quiet. If you're not going into the neighborhood, there's really no reason to drive through it.
Okay. I do want to. I don't know if the person who made this request is on or not. We do have a couple participants in the area, so if you do want to speak to this item, please raise your hand. You can do so if you're on phone, by dialing *9 to raise your hand, or if you're on Zoom, you can click raise hand at the bottom of your screen and wait to be recognized by the chair. Once you're recognized, we'll just ask you to state your name and address, and then whatever your comment is. So,
Mr. Chairman, I believe PD's on the in the attendees.
Oh, I see him.
Tom's there.
Yep.
Okay, if you don't mind promoting him, that'd be fantastic.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sergeant McDonald, welcome. Yep. Sergeant McDonald, can you hear us? Sergeant McDonald, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yes. Thank you.
All right. Sorry I'm late.
Nope, no problem. Family comes first. Gotta get that hockey practice in.
That's it.
So like I read, if there's anyone who does want to comment on this, Sergeant McDonald, just to catch you up real quick, we are talking about a no parking zone on Fay Lane where it meets with Church Street.
Yeah.
We had a request. Scott, did that come in from the resident at number 2?
Yes, it was an email from the resident
Okay.
expressing concern. So, Sergeant, as you drive into Fay Lane, you take a right off of Church. Left-hand side, there's a long vegetated area.
Right.
Right-hand side is a bunch of driveways before you take a right onto Valentine. I've driven by numerous times, but since the email, I've driven by and paid attention maybe half a dozen times. And probably, I don't know, maybe a third of the time I see vehicles parked on the vegetated side.
Yeah.
But it's not like a lot of
Yeah.
vehicles there.
And it's not necessarily, I mean, parking is they're pulled over for a few and then heading. It's not like they're leaving cars and walking in, right? It's not really
Right.
parking. It's stopping for a minute.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do we have any idea why people would be stopping there? I mean, that's sort of a weird place to.
No breakdown lane on Church Street, most likely.
Okay.
It's on that kind of straightaway, the flats. There's nowhere really
Right.
to stop. It's an easy little side street to just kind of pull in, stop if you have to text or call, I'm guessing, and then go about your day.
Are they typically like big trucks? Are they just regular passenger vehicles? And
No, I think it said it's they're complaining. I read the letter that was attached to the meeting. It was just cars that don't belong.
okay, yeah,
Those cars and pickups the neighbors don't recognize.
okay.
Can't do that.
So does this is this posing any type of like safety issue of cars coming around a corner or anything like that?
Not from a geometric perspective.
No.
Yeah, no, not that I know about.
So
It's a neighborhood road. So.
yeah. I mean, I'd be hesitant to just throw up no parking signs, right? We sort of don't want to, we could throw up no parking signs everywhere in the town, and because no one wants anyone to park in front of their house,
right?
Without some type of safety reason for it. I don't know what other members. What are your thoughts?
Kind of lean in the same way as it kind of sets a precedence for everybody in town. If you don't want people parking in front of your and I mean, not that people can park in front of my house because they're putting themselves in danger anyway, but it just anywhere. I mean, if it's someone pulling over to stop and redirect their GPS or make a call or send a text, that in the grand scheme of things they're doing the right thing there. So it's tough to kind of force a hand on that.
I've had cars stop and park in front of my house and go for a walk. Solicitors that will go through the neighborhood, and it's annoying, but it's not illegal. It is what it is, kind of thing.
So my question is, and I agree that you don't want them stopping, redirecting their GPS while they're driving or texting while they're driving. So if they're pulling over for a few minutes, but if there's a car that's sitting there and someone's concerned, this was at least the second email we've got where people are concerned about bothering the police. So I guess from a police standpoint, are you okay with people calling a non-emergency number if a car's there that's been sitting there longer than it would take to send a text?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we get those calls actually pretty often. Sometimes you have, there's sometimes private investigators that are watching something, or you get the insurance people taking pictures of houses. They park, they kind of go around and people will call and say, hey, there's been a car parked here for a little while. Can you check on it? Someone's been in it. They haven't gotten out. And we'll just see what they're doing and move them along. Or if they're not doing anything, they're just like, yeah, no, pulled over. I'm waiting for a phone call. It's all right. Have a good day. So yeah, people call often about that, and it's not. I mean, it's something that we do.
Okay, good. I just want people to feel comfortable. Everyone says they don't want to bother you guys, and I completely understand that. But okay,
no, not a bother.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, no,
So,
that makes sense.
yeah. Yeah, I think that, I do understand that, it can be a little disconcerting having people park out, in front of your lawn. Granted, there is a bit of a difference. We've been discussing over the past couple months about tractor trailers parking in front of people's lawns, people's houses, right? That's a bit different than, just somebody pulling over a car, even if they're there for an hour or two.
And I think the complaint is they're not even parking in front of someone's house. It's across the street where there's no houses, right? Is that it?
Right.
They're kind of,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct. It's on the
I mean, so it's
main
technically it's in front of their
towards-
house, but it is on the other side of the road, so
Yeah.
it's not direct. It's not like they're on their lawn or on their sidewalk or anything.
Right.
Right. So they're in the public way.
Yep. Yep. They're on the right of way. They're opposite side of the residential driveways and whatnot. So, yep.
Okay. So I guess, Scott, what do we do here? We reply back to the user or to the emailer and just say, we did discuss it, but we don't feel that there's a safety issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that
We
sound
do
about
have
right?
a phone number 508 ending in 754. I'm not sure if that's a resident associated with Fay Lane as an attendee, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. They would have to, if you do want to speak to this, either raise your hand, or if you're on a phone, please dial *9. That will raise your hand, and we can bring you into the conversation.
Yeah, otherwise, Mr. Chair, I'll respond with an email indicating the discussion tonight, and they're happy to resend their inquiry, but I agree with the committee that
And if you do send an email, certainly let them know that if they think there's something unsafe or dangerous or sketchy, they can call us.
call PD. Absolutely.
That's
Yep.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was going to suggest that as well, so that's good.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess we will move on to the second item. Maynard Street changed to 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. I was looking at this one. So I actually live in this area as well. I live on Whitney Street, right down from here. So Whitney is 35 in that area. It turns 35 once you make that corner by Washburn and then start heading up that hill. And it's 35 all the way to Berlin. I believe last time I went down there and I just took a quick look on Street View, I don't think there are any signs on Maynard that say that it's 30. So is this one of those defaults that we were talking about last month where
Yes.
it would default to 30? So if we changed, so this goes back to one of the things, in case people haven't been paying attention or listening to our meetings, we've been discussing over the past couple months about a lot of towns in the area, and now Worcester is even contemplating it, changing the default speed limit from 30 to 25. So this would actually fall under that. So I don't know if I'll open it up to members first. I know Chris and Brian, you haven't been for the past couple months. We did, we all started talking about that. One of the things that we found is that Worcester actually started doing a survey asking if its residents were interested in reducing the speed throughout the entire city to 25 miles an hour as a default. So we're seeing more and more of this. So I think this is something we really need to investigate. And I don't know if, maybe doing a survey ourselves, creating a survey for town residents.
Yeah. That's not a bad idea. I know the city of Lowell just incorporated that too, citywide, in thickly settled areas and business districts. So that excludes any of like the more main bigger roads that are probably DOT owned. But they have a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit, and they actually have installed, I think, kind of like those temporary speed humps that are removable. It looks like they're notched in the middle to help kind of keep some of the drainage flowing. But that was something I did notice. I drove through there a couple weeks ago and I was surprised to see it, but it definitely was effective.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the reason I originally brought it up was, drive through Concord all the time, and Concord and Bedford both, when you enter the town, there's a sign right there that says, the default speed limit is 25 miles an hour unless otherwise posted. So, we would have to post that throughout, every entrance into the town. But what are members' thoughts on that?
My one, excuse me. My one, I don't know if the survey is going to be useful, only because I can imagine either I can imagine the participation would tend towards people who really want the speed limit reduced. You get a lot of people who are like, yes, absolutely, we should do this. And then they would respond to the survey. And a lot of other people who wouldn't care would just kind of skip it.
Right. And then, but we would also get the people who do care for some reason or another, right? And maybe there is a reason not to do it that we're just not thinking about.
Okay. Is there a reason? Well, yeah.
Right. So I
Doesn't
know
hurt to ask.
when I did the town hall feasibility study, right? One of the knocks on us was that we didn't do any type of survey or any type of reaching out to the community. So I think this is a good first item to really reach out for this committee to the community and say, hey, we're contemplating this. We want your input.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think there's so much on Facebook, which is so unofficial, and people, if there's an official forum where people can give feedback anonymously or not anonymously, I think people appreciate it. And I certainly hope, we're able to get the word out so everyone can participate, or, whoever wants to. I do agree with Brian that you might have people that, are, have an agenda and that's why they're participating. But, we've given everyone the opportunity to officially participate. And I think that's the best you can do. But I think it's a great idea.
I think one issue you might come across is people whose roads are posted as 30 that want it 25 that now want it changed, but that takes a bigger act. So you might end up with some upset people, but
yeah.
Would it not impact those streets?
No, because they're posted. So if they're posted
Right.
at 30 and now the default goes to 25, they're posted at 30.
Yeah.
So that's a great question, because what if you have a road that's thickly settled that would technically meet the requirements of 25, but we have it as 30? How do you go about, if we have a sort of threshold for 25 miles per hour and there are roads that are now 30? Like, what's the?
You go to
How do we-
the through the chair. You go to the select board. The select board can establish that speed limit. They can lower the speed limit.
So if we were to combine this with the sign, when I forgot who goes around and evaluates the sign that we had talked about doing, can they add on like roads that might qualify for a 25 mile per hour limit? Is that, can you add that to their, what they're looking at?
There are communities that have 25 mile an hour zones that are listed in their bylaws, like stop signs, and no parking zones. Whether they adopted a, home rule or how their authority is achieved, I don't know. But I do know that there are communities that have 25 mile an hour speed zones listed in their bylaws.
Brian, go ahead.
Real quick, one of the other towns, and I can't remember which one it was. Let's say it was Concord. That when I was looking into the information, they had a map basically of what the speed limit was on every street in town. Do we have a comparable map? It would be nice to know how many of these posted 30 mile an hour streets there are.
We do not. had we chosen, had this committee chosen to go forward with the sign inventory, survey, and assessment at the last meeting, then eventually we would have that. But the decision was not to move forward with that, so we continued with the follow-up guardrail inventory this year and the pavement assessment drive around. So
It's one
And-
meeting, you miss a lot, I noticed.
Yeah, Scott, remind me that schedule, the sign inventory is scheduled for 2 years from now?
yeah, yep, exactly. So we drive around the entire town and evaluate all the roadway conditions every other year. And every other year, when they're doing that, we capture another data set. We've captured pavement markings, we've captured curb materials and conditions, sidewalk locations and conditions, guardrails. Guardrail was the first thing we did. We're doing our second guardrail condition assessment and inventory this year. So in 2 years, we'll be driving around again, at which point we can either update prior data sets or, add a data set like signs.
Okay, we had also talked about at next year's town meeting, bringing up potentially doing default 25 miles per hour. So that was the reason that we were delaying the sign survey, correct? So that we could sort of combine the two, because it was going to require new signs and there were going to be additional costs if we voted at town meeting to reduce the default limit to 25 miles per hour. So that was why we delayed it. Correct?
I think that's part of the process, Rachel. You do the survey, everybody wants it, and then you come up with the legal process to implement, which I believe requires town meeting action, and then you fund the inventory and the assessment of where the changes will be. So
Okay.
that's kind of the logical process.
That was my understanding of why we delayed it, so we could sort of combine it with a signed survey with the reduced or the 25 mile per hour default speed limit.
Citizen survey, committee action, selectmen action, town meeting action, DPW action.
Okay.
Just a
And then
couple
PD action right at the end.
Right.
You need a little flow chart for everyone.
So step one is to get the survey out into the community.
I think so. I think, reaching out to the community, seeing where, where there's interest, where there might not be, where there might be things that we're not thinking about, right? We're only 5 people.
Yeah.
So, out of 14,000.
Yeah. So shot in the dark, is there any way we could have something ready for something like Applefest? I think
No, I don't know.
no. I know a couple years
I
ago
gotta
they did
talk
one
to-
for downtown.
Yeah, I got to talk to the select board about potential, funding the survey and how we would go about doing that. So,
Do people have to opt in with their email? Because like when you opt into town, you don't have access to everyone's 14,000 people's emails, right?
well, and
So
that's the
again,
thing. A
I
lot
mean,
of
as
these
Brian said, you're
surveys,
getting,
yeah, a lot of these surveys, they don't even ask people to put in, their personal information, because then you're tracking that. Then you've got to maintain PII data, which gets into a whole, I work in cybersecurity. It gets into a whole realm that you don't want to get into.
okay.
So, so generally they don't even ask those questions. They just, are you a resident? And they put yes, even, so people will lie, but it may still give us ideas. I know somebody has their hand up in the attendees here, so I'm going to allow them in. It is just a phone number. If you can, Scott, do you remember how to unmute? Is it star
It looked like
6?
they did.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Hi, caller. Your name and address, please. Hello? Can you hear us? They hung up. Okay. I see Rob trying to raise and lower his hand, so I'll let Rob in. Rob, if you can unmute your mic, your first.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi. Your
Hi,
name
how
and
are you?
address, please.
Robert and Julie Schlachter at 33 Maynard Street. And I guess after listening, first of all, I think you saw it in the message that we started initially with the chief, but we came in from Hudson and moved in here a short time ago. We're very, very impressed with the response that we got from the chief and the attention to the issue. And I really do appreciate that. And I also appreciate being turned on to the Traffic Safety Committee. I think it is a good idea in terms of what you guys are bringing up long term. But I just wanted to ask, after speaking with the chief, so regardless of how long that might take for a town initiative, the fact of the matter is that the street, the Maynard Street, has turned over significantly with new young residents, which has a lot more traffic walking pets and exercising. And I'm telling you, it is just a matter of time before one of these speeding cars takes somebody out. And I would hate, to come back and have to have a discussion after a fatality, because that's how serious it is. And once we did put in the radar speed, we did notice a significant reduction in speed. And what I wanted to bring up was I brought up, if the residents wanted to contribute to buy one of those devices, because I know it travels around the town and gets set up when there's requests. But if we wanted to have that permanently installed somewhere, or I heard mention of the rumble strip, is there a process with the select board that we need to go through and initiate to see if we could in fact pay to have one of those devices permanently installed on the street, or some sort of a speed bump? Because it definitely has worked, but around morning hours, people going to work, and when it starts getting to dusk with people returning, we've seen speeds as high as 60 miles an hour coming down the street and up the street. And it's really getting to a problem where you have neighbors literally yelling at cars to slow down. So I was just curious, if that was a possibility to get a permanent radar detection sign on the street where it was previously located.
Okay. Thank you. Officer McDonald, I think they have more than one of those, right? You have like 4 or 5 of those devices, I believe.
We have, I believe, 2 trailers that we drive around, and then either 2 or 3 of the signs that can be strapped to basically any pole, sign, tree. So I did, when I got the first memo, we have a day shift, one of the officers, I send them, we got complaints, we kind of move them around, let them sit there for a couple weeks until they die, and then we recharge them and move them, because we get obviously a lot of requests for them. So I know we have one up there for a while. As far as a permanent one, the only one I'm aware of, and I don't even know who or how it got put there, was the one on the corner of Solomon Pond at Hudson. I don't know who installed that or how it got put up there, if someone bought it, but I mean, it rarely works. I think it hasn't worked in years, but
I see the blue light come on all the time when I go by it. So
yeah, but it never
it's
shows you a
sending
speed.
somewhere,
It never
but no
shows
one's
you a
getting it.
sign or anything. So I don't
Right.
know. Yeah, but I don't know who was responsible. That was way before my time. I don't know if it was the PD, the DVW, a private resident. I don't know about that, but
I'm not sure either, Sergeant. I that was before my time as well. I know it's been operational, non-operational. I'm not sure. It's an odd spot because it's I believe it's solar powered,
right.
and it's like under like tree canopy. So I don't know how it ended up there. And it's right before a really sharp curve, which
Well, and that's why they have it, both ways. They do have one kind of by Castadiva going the other way too.
yeah.
But I don't know who had them put there. So I'm sure there is a way if someone bought one. I don't know the process of being like, hey, I want this installed. Whether that's a town or selectman choice or the DPW. I wouldn't be able to tell you.
So,
Yeah, that might be something that needs to come up in like town meeting, right? Because you would require a funding source of some type.
so residents are not allowed to purchase any traffic control equipment and attach it to any, infrastructure or along the public right of way to
Yeah, we'd
direct.
have
That's,
literally everyone. I think
neighborhood
would
can't
be-
go out there and buy a sign and say, here it is.
Right.
Outside of the little green guy who was like, kids are here. Like that's a little different.
Right.
But beyond that, I'm not sure of any logistics associated with putting a permanent installation there by donation.
We talked a while back about doing a pilot program with the temporary speed humps. I don't remember where we landed with that, but I thought we had discussed potentially doing a pilot program with the temporary speed humps that we could take up in the winter.
Yeah, we did discuss that. One of the struggles is the limitation associated with it. The resources Public Works has to shepherd a pilot program like that is relatively limited. You know, a few locations to see how it works, but in order to install and remove those on a systematic fashion around town, that's a pretty substantial programmatic change to our operations. You put those speed bumps on 4 roads, that's easy enough. If it's a systematic process around town, that's a completely different discussion.
Well, it does seem
Yeah,
like something, it's by far, I think, it's got to be our most common request, right? Is a speed something or other, right? I think it's worth looking into a pilot program, whatever we think the DPW can handle, because that's what people are asking for.
Can you
Yes.
guys still hear me?
Yes.
So, look, the other thing I would, just recommend, and they were kind enough to, put some officers, we volunteered our driveway, which hides you from the road. But I mean, it's a revenue abundanza from a speeding fine perspective.
Yep.
I'm guaranteeing it. But
For the
maybe that's
Commonwealth,
the way,
not for
maybe
the
that's the way funds can be allocated to pay for more devices. I don't know, but it's just,
we don't get any
it's
money.
really
from
becoming an
repairs.
issue, and this is before daylight savings. Okay,
Okay, well,
Yeah.
just trying to come up with ideas, because it really is significantly dangerous, and that's
Yep.
before it turns dark early.
No, I completely agree. I actually live on Whitney Street, directly on Whitney Street, right around the corner from you. So, there are no sidewalks on, in front of my house either. And, people walk, my kids get, take the bus and walk the dogs and everything else. So, I understand where you're coming from. There is only so many funds we can do. And as Sergeant
I think,
McDonald
at
said,
the end of the day, that we're just hoping that the best answer for us is hoping for 25 miles an hour, just to slow it down.
unfortunately, that won't slow it down. All that will do is means that the state gets more money when they get caught. Right?
Actually, when we had the sign up, Bill, it was really impressive that, you'd see a car coming down. We were watching the sign. It was right in front of our house. And you'd see people coming down Maynard doing 37 miles an hour. And when they saw the sign, they were starting to go down. So it'd be 29, 28. So we felt like it was kind of effective.
And
And,
I mean,
it's
sorry.
I'm sorry. It's
I
interesting to
have
us
guys
because
put
these
signs
are our
up
neighbors.
everywhere.
All right, thank you for your time and listening.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. And we will continue with this. So, this isn't the end by all means. Like we said, we've been talking about this for the past couple months. And I think we really need to move forward on, as you said, on the 25 mile an hour, but, maybe Sergeant McDonald, if there's something we can, add a funding source to get more of those signs to be able to put up around town. I don't know
Yeah,
your
there is
officers
a,
can handle that many signs, but
No, well, so I was going to tell him we'll put another side. I mean, I can get it. I kind of rotate. We get a lot of requests, so we kind of move them all around town and let them sit. You know, you don't want to just put it up for a day or two and move it. That seems silly. So we let them sit. But there's only so. I mean, there's everyone's asking, and there's only so many places you can go. But I don't mind setting. You know, we'll put another one back up there as soon as we can. But there is, I believe it's already set for next year. We do a traffic grant as far as like, you know, the click it or ticket or the, you know, drive sober, get pulled over type statewide ones. And included in that is some money towards items we could use in town. So I don't know. I just got into this. I just kind of got put into the traffic role. So I'll have to talk to the other sergeant that was previous to see if we requested any more of those signs or if we have any more coming in. And if not, I can certainly ask the following year after that, you know. And some of the revenue, they reimburse our overtime for those traffic mobilizations, and they can also give us some money to maybe buy some more of the mobile signs.
I mean, I'll state the obvious, and I say this all the time when residents call. You know, these roads were built for like a 1971 Plymouth Fury 4-door. And we're driving around in, you know, 2020 Acura MDXs, and the driving conditions are a little bit different from the passenger compartment. If I drove out there in my 73 Fury, I would probably do 22 miles an hour down Maynard because that's as fast as you can possibly go safely. Things have changed, and it's not just our community. I live in Grafton. It's all communities, and it's a systemic issue that I wish it could be addressed easily, but unfortunately, irresponsible drivers, it's hard to it's hard to put physical impediments that they won't, observe.
right. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to investigate how we can get a survey out there. And, maybe once we get that up and running, I also, maybe if members can think about what questions to ask, right? I mean, I've got the Worcester one, the link to the Worcester one to look at, but what questions do we want to ask other than the obvious, what do you think about a 25 mile an hour townwide speed zone, for or against? But, are there any other questions that we should include in that?
I'd like to ask about the speed humps. Like I said, it comes up enough that
Okay.
Yeah,
maybe it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, I was just going to say, Scott, maybe that's something that we look at. You put them out in the spring and you just leave them in one location until the fall, right? Instead of trying to move them around town.
right.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
They definitely need to be strategically placed too, because if you place one, at the end of Maynard, they're going to hit it and then they're going to go 60 through the rest of, the other 2/3 of it. If you place it in the middle, the same thing's going to happen. So it's almost, you got to think about how to strategically place it to help slow down those vehicles.
Well, and then you got to worry about signage and everything to make sure that everyone sees it.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Go ahead, Scott.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So one of the challenges with having a mobile traffic control device that's not observed, it's actually felt by the driver, is that it's unexpected. So if you were to put a speed hump on, Maynard at the Valley, and you have temporary signage up that they don't necessarily expect, that's an unexpected obstruction of whatever. So you're rolling down Maynard, you see a temporary sign up there that you don't expect, and then you hit the speed bump. There is no mobile speed hump. Speed humps capture one axle, then the second axle, and it's a gradual rollover. Speed bump, which is mobile, is a little more dramatic when you hit it. So, like you said, Chris, you need to be strategic on where you put them, and they need to be safe. What I would be fearful of, Mr. Chairman, is putting a survey out, say, do you want speed humps in town? to reduce speed? I would think everybody would say yes. And then you look at the survey we did amongst our peers, where 70% of the community said, no, we don't have them, we don't use them, we tried them, they didn't work. There's a danger in, leaving everything up to, the voting public, because it can be a challenging process when it comes to drainage, safety, advance notice.
Okay.
I will say, the other concern would be, nighttime. Yeah, we can put up signs that, people can see during the day, but, at midnight at 1 o'clock going down Maynard Street, you may not see the sign that there's a speed bump there and not expecting it, but
Generally, when you're putting up traffic speed mitigation elements like that, it's around locations that have destination, frequent pedestrian use, dangerous interactions with other roadway users, parks, playgrounds, schools, municipal buildings, the like. So there are locations that would be appropriate, but maybe we'd have to think about where they go.
The few I've seen in other towns too, they obviously have it. They haven't painted on the pavement, like the big arrows leading up to them. So I guess that would be the nighttime issue with reflective paint on the ground. But
those are permanent. Again, we're talking about something temporary.
Yeah, if we're doing
so
temporary ones, then it's different. But
there's no paint or anything, right?
Right.
So,
Well,
I mean,
hey,
we can put it on there and we can see, we'll see what we get back, right? That's the whole point of, the point of the survey isn't just, gathering information, but it's also, getting this committee's name out there as, somewhere for people to go to talk about these type of things. So again, if you guys have any ideas for other questions, email me, email Scott, and and we'll definitely, we can definitely look at adding them onto the survey.
One thing would be helpful is the geographic target points for speed mitigation, or is it at schools? Is it sharp curves? Is it the entry to neighborhoods? That type of thing would be helpful to know.
Okay, maybe that's part of the question then is, is this, if you say yes to this, what is the street that, you're looking to.
yeah, if so, where did you have in mind?
Right, exactly. Good. Okay, so we will move on. The HCVE study funding for Lincoln Street and Pleasant. Do we have any update on that, Scott, or is that still?
We do not. It was discussed at the last meeting. Our select board liaison talked about ARPA. It wasn't at last night's meeting. We do have budget in DPW at the end of the fiscal year, which would be June of 25. If there is adequate resources to allocate toward this, that would be an eligible use. What we do as Public Works is we make sure that we have reserves throughout the year to address emergencies. So I wouldn't want to delegate $18,000 to a study with the upcoming hurricane season in the fall and spring melt. Who knows what's going to happen?
Right. No, I agree.
Come May and June, if there's money available in the budget, I'm happy to talk to the committee about, putting it toward a study.
Yep. Okay. Is everyone okay with that? Okay. No news is good news. And then for next year, we're going to look at Brigham Street, doing the counts for Brigham Street.
Yep.
So we'll leave that one on there for now. At this point, I'm going to open up. I think all of our attendees have left, but This is normally the point where we would open up the meeting for anyone who would like to make a public comment or ask us questions.
I do have one thing from the chief, if you don't mind.
By all means.
So I know it wasn't discussed tonight, but last month we talked about the truck parking, Bartlett, Lyman, all that. He had reached out. He was asked to reach out to Amazon to ask about a waiting area or a parking area for them to wait before they're loading or after they're loading. And I just wondered if he wanted to share the email response he got back. And it's essentially that they said the drivers are informed through the app they use. It directs them to the nearest rest stop for truckers, which would be, Flynn's or somewhere on the Mass Pike, and that they're informed ahead of time when they can arrive at their site based on schedules of incoming and outgoing trailers. So essentially, no, they have no plans for a waiting parking area. Their drivers are supposed to arrive within a window to basically drop it and get out of there. They don't want people hanging around either. It doesn't sound like they care about their hours as much. So they're told where the nearest truck stops are, and they don't have any plans to build a waiting area or a parking area for them. So he just wanted me to pass that along to you guys since it was mentioned last month.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Can you ask him to forward that to Mr. Charpentier so that he can forward it to the committee so that we have it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll have the chief. He forwarded me her response. I'll have him send it to you guys as well.
Perfect. Thank you. A little disappointing, but not unexpected. Anything else? Okay. I am going to hold off on the approval of the meeting minutes from August 13th, only because Kate's not here, so there would only be 2 of us able to vote on it. And I want to make sure that there's 3 of us that can vote on it. Next meeting is scheduled for October already. October 8th. Brian, I am going to be in a training in Boston that day. I'm going to try to get back in time, but I may need you to start the meeting.
Okay.
And run the meeting if you're okay with that.
I can make it work.
Thank you. If there's no other business, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a
So moved,
motion.
Mr. Chair.
Anyone?
Okay. Second?
Second.
It's been so much fun. We don't want to leave.
Roll call vote. Rachel?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee.
Bye-bye.